So it goes 2, 1, none, descending. All right, so to factor that, there are two methods that I think work the best. And so I'm going to show you both methods, okay? Now, I like my first method the best because it's easier. I feel that it's easier to remember. Now, we're talking about factoring where there's no exponent, or sorry, no coefficient on the x squared. It's just x squared by itself, okay? And the method one, I call the big giant X. Okay, so the first thing you do is you make a big giant X. And then inside your big giant X, you put a multiplication and an addition. Okay. This number 20 goes with the multiplication. So put the 20 right there.
That's the last number?
Uh-huh. And this number 9 goes with the addition. So I put the 9 right there. Okay. So the middle number goes with the addition, and the last number goes with the multiplication. Then the numbers that go in these two sides, I'm looking for, it's like a puzzle. I'm looking for two numbers that when I multiply them, it equals 20. And when I add them, it equals 9. So you start thinking about things that multiply to equal 20. You've got 2 times 10. Well, if you add that, that's 12. 4 times 5. 4 plus 5 is 9. So my two numbers are 4 and 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. 4 plus 5 is 9. It's fun, right? So it's like a puzzle. Once you found these two numbers, these are your factors of 20. And those go in your parentheses. And it doesn't matter what order. I could have done 5 and 4 and put x plus 5 and x plus 4. That's the same thing. So what you found are the numbers that go in your parentheses. So x plus 4, x plus 5, and you factored. You're done. Method 2 is to use a table of factors. Okay, and so we do factors of, and then we say their sum. Okay. Now the factors of, we're looking for the last number. That's what goes right there. So I'm looking for factors of 24. And then I add them together. So I start listing factors of 24. I get 1 and 24. Well, if I add that, it's 25. 2 and 12 is 14. 3 and 8 is 11. 4 and 6 is 10. And then I'm done. When I find, you don't have to keep going once you've found this match. So you're listing the factors of the last number and adding them together to try to get the middle number. It's the same process as the big giant X. You're just writing it out differently. Once you found that number, these are your factors that you're looking for. And that's what goes in your parentheses. And again, it doesn't matter what, I could do x plus 8, x plus 3. That part doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one goes first or second or anything like that. Just these two numbers are what will go in your parentheses. I'll do this one with the big giant X again. The first thing I like to do, I like to put it in order because that way it doesn't confuse me. So I always do descending order, so 2, 1, none. And then I make my big giant X, and I make a multiplication, and I make an addition. That last number goes with my multiplication, and the middle number goes with my addition. Okay, so I'm looking for factors of 9, so two numbers that'll multiply to make 9 that will add up to make 10. So I've got 3 and 3, that adds up to 6. 1 and 9. So my numbers will be 1 and 9. So I get x plus 1, x plus 9. Now if we go back to this one, you'd have with your multiplication that 24, and with your addition you'd have that 11. And so you start thinking of factors that'll multiply to make 24 and then add them together till you try to find the 11. And you'd still get the 3 and the 8. And the same thing as if you came over here and you did the table and you started doing factors of 9. And you do 3 and 3 and you say, okay, the sum is 6. And you say, okay, 9 and 1, and then the sum is 10. And you go, woohoo, I found it. Yay.
No matter what the variables are, whether they're D or T,
That's
it's
not.
going to be X.
Yeah, no, the big giant X is not a variable, it's just a organization tool. So it's like another version of a table, but the table happens to be a big giant X. Does that help? Okay.
So they have to add to the smaller number, but multiply to the bigger number.
They have to add, well, not necessarily the smaller number, the middle number, right? Because here, 9 is actually the smaller number, but they're adding up to 10. So they add up to the middle number and multiply to the last number. Yeah.
When at the bottom, when the X plus 1, no, D, even though X is D.
Oh, that's what you meant. Yeah, I just happened to default.
Oh, okay.
You're right. I wasn't paying attention. That should be D and that should be T.
Okay.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were talking about this big giant X. No, that was just me defaulting. I just tend to go, oh, X, even when it's another letter, and I shouldn't do that. It meant it should have been D and this should have been T. Thank you for catching that. This is always a big giant X, though. B is negative and C is positive. So the middle number is negative and the last number is positive. Okay? When this happens, think about this. Two numbers that'll add up to make a negative but will multiply to make a positive are both what? Negative. So my factors are both negative. Because a negative times a negative is a positive, but a negative plus a negative is negative. So it's the same idea. I'm still looking for two things that'll multiply to make that third number or last number and add up to make that middle number, but they're both going to be negative this time. So if we do the big giant X, and I have multiplication and addition, and you can put addition on top and multiplication on the bottom, that part doesn't matter either. Just so long as one of these is multiplication and one of them is addition. And the last number goes with the multiplication, and the middle number goes with the addition. So I want two numbers that when I multiply them, I get 12, and when I add them, I get negative 8. So let's start thinking about things that multiply to make 12. Yeah, negative 2 and negative 6. So negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. Negative 2 plus negative 6 is negative 8. So, yeah, this one is an actual X. Okay, so that works. Okay. Again, I'm going to rewrite this because I like them in order. That's just me. I happen to like them to go in order. You don't have to rewrite it if you don't want to. I have like a little bit of math OCD and I have to have them in order. To me, it's easier.
So you do the polynomial first and then?
Yeah, I just rewrote it in order so that I knew which, that way you know for sure which number is last, so it should go with the multiplication, and which number should go with the addition too. Now, do you guys want to see the big giant X again or the table thing? X, okay. X is fun. You guys like the X? I think the X helps to put it in like a perspective a little easier than the table does. That's just me though. Like I said, it's different for everybody. Okay, so the multiplication is that last number, so it's a 21. And the addition is the middle, so it's a negative 22. So I'm going to try to find two numbers that will multiply to make 21 and add to make 22, except this time they're both negative. So, okay, 21, 3 times 7, that adds up to 10. 21 and 1 adds up to 22. So that's going to be negative 21 and negative 1.
It's basically the same, just negative.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's little different, tiny bit different, negatives instead of positives. Okay, and that's what happens when you have this number is negative and this number is positive. Then they're both negative. So I get m this time, m minus 21, m minus 1. Do you guys want to try this one yourself and then we can compare answers? 28 went there, and what'd you put here? And factors? Anybody?
Negative 7 and negative 4.
Yep. And those add up. Oh, sorry, we're W, not X. That's okay, because a W can easily be converted from when you started an X. So this one is a little bit different because we have a C negative. Now, when C is negative, you could end up with a positive B or a negative B. So what happens on this is you get one positive and one negative. Okay? And then the sign of the middle number is the sign of the bigger factor. And I'll explain that in a little bit better in just a second. Okay? So what we do is the same basic process. I'm still going to make the big giant X. And I'm still going to have multiplication and I'm still going to have addition. And I'm still going to put that last term here and the middle term here. And I'm still looking for two numbers that multiply to make 15. But instead of adding them, I'm going to subtract them. Because one's positive and one's negative to give me that negative 15, right? And when I have opposite signs, I subtract. So I start thinking of factors of 15. Okay, I have 1 and 15. If I do 15 minus 1, I get 14. I have 3 and 5. If I do 5 minus 3, I get a 2. That's what I want. So you find your factors, subtract instead of add. Okay, so I have a 5 and I have a 3. And then you look at the sign of the middle number and you make that the sign of the bigger factor. Okay, so negative 2, so negative 5. Because 5 is bigger than 3 and I want it to give me a negative. So negative 5 plus 3 does give me negative 2. So in this case, I would have an x minus 5 and an x plus 3. Okay. I'm going to change this to a positive because I have 3 negatives and only 1 positive. So big giant X, multiplication, addition, negative 18, positive 7. Start looking for factors of 18. 1 and 18, if I subtract those, I get 17. 2 and 9. 9 minus 2 is 7, right? So I know it's a 2 and a 9. This is positive, so this is positive, so I make that one negative. Okay. So the smaller factor gets the opposite sign. So this would be x minus 2 and x plus 9. I'm just going to run through these last two really quick, okay? I have a negative 48 and a positive 13. So I start thinking about factors of 48. I get 2 and 24 gives me a 21. 6 and 8 give me a 2, because I'm subtracting, right? 16 and 3 give me a 13. The 13 is positive, so I want the 16 to be positive, and that makes the 3 negative, so that I can do that subtraction. And last one, I have negative 24 and, whoops, negative 24 and negative 2. So things that'll multiply to make 24, that if I subtract them, they'll give me a 2. 6 and 4, right? And I want the 2 to be negative, so I make the 6 negative. So x minus 6, x plus 4. Any questions about that?